Welcome to the Big Success Show. Today, how to save money on a midlife crisis.
Big Success with the Professor and Mary-Lynn.
So you're going to save me money on my midlife crisis, are you, Mary-Lynn?
You're going through one?
Well, we're going to talk about it.
I thought you were past midlife.
Well, hey, now watch it, boy.
Just checking.
My goodness. So a midlife crisis can be costly, and fortunately, there's a new discovery that offers a new way to save ourselves and our money.
And it's inspired by the book, The Happiness Curve, which is authored by Jonathan Rauch.
Hello, I'm George Kruger, sometimes called the Professor.
And I'm his best student, Mary-Lynn.
Actually, I'm not sure about that. Not the way you're behaving today. You're going to get bad marks. Well, what do you think of when I say midlife crisis?
Generally, you always think of a guy who's middle-aged who suddenly has to go get like some hot convertible car or something, you know.
And starts wearing his shirt like overly unbuttoned and got the gold chains.
And delivers cheesy lines and, is very flirty.
Well, I looked it up the other day, Mary-Lynn. You want to know what's in the dictionary under the word midlife crisis?
What?
It's actually a photo of Santa selling his sleigh for a Harley.
Oh, jeez. Sounds, oh my gosh. Santa in leather. Oh,
yes, there you go.
That really is fitting. Okay. Well, today we want to talk about this midlife crisis and ultimately what Jonathan Rauch calls the happiness curve and how it affects you. Mm-hmm. So let's start with the happiness curve. What is that all about?
Well, the happiness curve describes how aging affects our happiness. And if you picture what he's saying is that as we're younger, we're very high. We have a lot of happiness. Mm-hmm. And then that tends to deteriorate over time, and it tends to bottom out in our 40s. And then once we get through our 40s, it starts going back up again and kind of goes up for the rest of our lives. So it's this U-shaped thing when plotted on a graph that starts high in youth, peaks in our 60s and beyond, but bottoms out in our 40s.
It's rather interesting that both the younger parts of our life and the older parts of our life are the times when we're at the most happy.
But here's the thing. When we're young, we have a naive form of happiness. And we're protected, and mom and dad are, taking care of things, mm-hmm. etc. When we're old, it's now us. We're comfortable with ourselves, and we're happy with the direction we've set. We are at peace with many decisions we've made, etc. So it's a sophisticated form of happiness.
So let's examine the most unhappy time of our lives while we're at this bottom.
That figures. You go right to the unhappiest.
In the middle. Well, let's examine this and see. It is during this time that we can do a lot of stupid stuff to make up for the unhappiness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so like typical midlife crisis, right? So we tend to do or spend money in ways that we normally wouldn't. And now the interesting thing is...
And it's not just that. I mean, wouldn't it be just taking risks and just, you've got this sense of disappointment, or maybe you feel like life has passed you by. Yes. And so suddenly you want to just do all these things that you didn't do? Is that what happens?
That's part of it. Now, I guess, the thing we need to understand is for most people, something like this is going to happen at some point in your life. And it's as natural as the transition from puberty to adolescence. In fact, it's important. I just said a word, transition. The author doesn't talk about a crisis, a midlife crisis. He talks about a midlife transition. And so it's important for us to understand that this is likely to happen, and it's just a part of living. So it's not a matter of saying, how do I prevent it? It's a matter of saying, how do I manage it?
I totally get it. Once I hit my 40s, mid 40s, there tends to be a sense of, wow, you look at somebody in their 20s and you wish that you could go back to your 20s and maybe do things differently that you did when you were in your 20s. Sure. And so there's that little nagging disappointment. Mm-hmm. Now, for me, I was able to get past that with faith. Mm-hmm. That really helped me start looking forward instead of looking backward, because that's the worst.
Right.
But it's interesting that you say that this is something that's natural, that we can expect to go through it just like puberty.
Yeah, and I think that was the big reveal I felt from this book, actually. It's a great book. We recommend it to you. But the big thought that came out of it to me was this idea that we are going to experience a transition much like we expect as teenagers. The only thing is, it is a change, I guess, in our body. Our body changes, right? I mean, so it is very similar to that puberty to adolescence change, and that we're going through some bodily changes there
True.
too. But it's more
That affects your confidence and all of that, too.
Yes, it's more the mental and emotional parts that we really need to think about.
So a midlife crisis can be very costly, as we've discussed earlier.
Yes.
Buying an expensive car.
Right.
That's generally what what we associate this with. But,
Or a Harley.
how do we avoid needless spending to make up for feeling a lack of happiness?
So how to save money on your midlife crisis? Is
Yeah.
that what you're asking me, Mary-Lynn?
Yes.
Yes, well,
Because I was about to go shopping.
realize that this too shall pass. So you just need to accept the fact, okay, look, this is what I'm going through. I'm going through a midlife transition. And so recognizing it is part of managing it better, getting through it better. And then the second thing is you can take comfort knowing that the best is yet to come. I mean, we will peak again in our 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. We'll start working our way back up in our 50s. And this number is going to depend on each person, that kind of thing. But the point is, we can count on
Get
being
past
happy
this time
again.
of disappointment, realize that it's just a change, that you're changing, and that happiness is just around the corner.
Yes. And then the next thing is, rather than focus so much on material possessions, on appearance, those kinds of things, think more about spending your money on, if you're going to spend some money, spend it on an investment in you, in improving, for example, go back and take a class you've always wanted to take. Start a business you've always wanted to start. Volunteer for, a cause that you've always admired and haven't ever done any work with before.
Do something that's lasting.
Yes, and so focus on your own personal growth. We always say here at Big Success, growth is what happens when what we know intersects with what we don't know. And when we're pushing beyond what we know, now we're going to experience personal growth, and that's going to be exciting. It's going to be fun, and we're going to find that that's what leads to big success.
And that leads us to our big takeaway.
Growth emerges from the ash heaps. Say that 3 times real fast.
Gotta be careful on that one. And what does not bring abundance?
What?
Spending frivolously on things because you're trying to make up for your age.
There you go. That's probably true.
So chase that away. Take on that abundant mindset and pick up our free kit called the Big Success Abundant Living System. 5 steps to living abundantly. Get the link to the free kit with the information provided for this episode, or you can just go straight to Big Success, that's big with 2 G's, success.com.
And we thank you so much for helping us get through this crisis today.
Until next time,
Here's to your big success. Find big success at biggsuccess.com.